Alright, welcome to FastGadgets. Just an update on Fedora 25. I've done many of the tweaks that I wanted to do and gotten things looking very nice, I must say. I'm very pleased with Fedora 25. There are a few small bugs that I've been dealing with, and I'm going to talk about those, but nothing major so far. First thing I'm going to do is show you whether or not we have an update. I just have to remember my password. Okay, so if I do a DNF update, there's actually no updates. I did an update earlier today and I had about 100 megabytes of updates. Now it was mainly for LibreOffice, so the only other update that was system related was Anaconda. And it was just a couple of script updates, so really nothing huge, and it somewhat surprises me that we really don't have more updates than we did. So I did a couple of different things. I've been experimenting with settings, and I found that overall for me, and right now I'm in KDE Plasma, if I go into system settings, I did quite a bit of experimentation, and keep in mind that we're actually running on the Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro, and if I go into display and monitor, I have changed the screen res. Am I in the right place in the first place? I think so. Yeah, I've changed the resolution to native, which is 3200 by 1800 for this particular system. Now you can't really see it here. I think what I'm gonna do is render out this video in 4K, so if you have a 4K TV, you might be able to see in the output the sharpness, but you won't be able to see how the IPS panel looks, and I have to say the clarity of the text is stunning. Now, a couple of you suggested why not run it in 1080p and just leave it that way, because if you look at the Voco screen here and you compare the size of the text in Voco screen to this text, basically what's happening is Voco screen is not using the scaling factor that I've applied, so it's not responding to Plasma's updates to scale text. So scaling is nowhere near as good as Windows LAN, unfortunately. I'm really disappointed because, you know, when you set scaling in Windows, at this point every application complies. Another one that does not comply, I'll show you, is GIMP, and it doesn't really matter which desktop environment you're using. GIMP has absolutely no scaling enabled. So I don't know if you can see this, but look at the size of these icons. They're basically so tiny. There's really no way that I can work with GIMP in this full resolution, and that's a bit of a problem. So what I've been doing is I've got another desktop environment, GNOME, set up, and I have it set in 1080p. Now, something about the font rendering in GNOME is actually beautiful. So even in 1920 by 1080, it looks really good. I'm really quite impressed. I've done quite a lot of tweaks, and if I go back into my favorites and go into system settings, a couple of things that I've done in workspace theme, I've added some desktop themes in here, and right now I'm using Arezzo, and I really like that one. These other ones I'm not a big fan of. Fedora 25 was okay, but I didn't really like it too much. I've added some additional cursor themes, but I guess I didn't. I did that in GNOME, so I'll show you those when we get over there. I think I'm going to find some more cursor themes and see what I can do, and I can click here, of course, and do Get New Theme. And I usually go by ratings because I'm curious which cursors people like the most. I'll just go ahead and install it. Now here's all the different sources and versions. They have a left-handed version and a right-handed version. That's pretty cool. Now if I click this one, will it actually install? We'll find out. So while that one's working, let's just try this one. We'll do install and see what happens. So before those show up, I might have to go back and then go back into cursor themes. Yeah, Hackneyed is now showing up. I'm surprised this one is so popular. It basically looks like Windows 3.1 to me. Breeze is pretty nice. Breeze Snow. This one isn't too bad. So I apply it. My cursor would be white. I don't know if I really care for the white. Let's apply it again and look at... that's not too bad. And I'm pretty sure this is the one I've been on. Honestly, don't remember. I'm wondering why that one didn't download or if it had problems. We'll do get new theme. Go by rating. Let's check out comics cursors. So I can get the RPM, and they have opaque as well, so they have quite a few here. And if I clicked install again and I went with opaque, I wonder what would happen. Okay. Obsidian, maybe check out that one. And I'll click close, and they showed up right away. So there's Obsidian, my default. So I have noticed sometimes things don't show up. I'm not seeing a big difference between the Adwaita and Obsidian. Maybe some size changes, just a few differences. I think people can get pretty picky on these. And then there's default. So anyway, I can change the cursors. I haven't changed the splash screen. I'm good with the Fedora splash screen. And let's see, look and feel. And you notice not everything scales quite right. So if I move the mouse to the corner so I can drag it and make it larger, look how tiny the double arrows get. Very, very small. That's very difficult to see when you're trying to actually make an adjustment. No, it wasn't look and feel. The other thing I updated was application style, Windows decorations. And I just wanted to warn you, if you apply one and the bar is not drawing right, it probably is a good idea to reboot. And I'm saying reboot, not just log off and back on. And you really want to find one that has an option to change the button size, because if you're in a high resolution environment, the normal size for the buttons will be far too small at a higher resolution. So this is one I grabbed. I've checked out most of these, and Air Oxygen is really beautiful looking. I like that one too. Transparent's nice looking. But the one I decided to go with that I liked most was this one, because it seems to work really well. Again, if you do get any strange artifacting up here or the entire title bar is missing, just give it a reboot. So I changed that. I didn't change DDK style. I haven't really looked much in here, so I'm not sure how much I can do. Interesting. I'll have to experiment with this and see what I can do with font size and things like that, and see if any of this helps. Okay, so the other thing I did, of course, in display and monitor, if I go down to scale display, when I try to do Anything between 1 and 1.5, it will not scale. So basically what you have to do is you're kind of stuck with, just like with the previous versions, at least on this Lenovo. 1, 1.5, or 2. I selected 1.5. That made the text much too large. So after I did that, I went into fonts and I changed the Force Fonts DPI, took it down to 192. I think it was on 224 or something like that. I didn't bother to change these. I just made my change here because it's much faster. And what else did I do? I've installed a couple of different applications. For one thing, on my favorites here, I installed Google Chrome, and this is actually the GNOME command line. So if I put in terminal, console comes up, and this may be splitting hairs. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, but to me, this console is much more elegant and compact looking, and elegant and compact is what I want. So this one is just huge, and I'm sure I could probably figure out how to close all that. But, you know, it was just easier to go ahead and switch and use the GNOME terminal. So much easier for me. So all I did was add that to my favorites. I added my Kdenlive video editor on the last episode, and screencast, Foco Screen, which is what I'm using here with the super tiny text. I just happen to know all the buttons well enough, so it really hasn't been an issue. So I know where to click and what to do. And we're recording right now. Things are going pretty good. Up in this area here, you may be seeing flickering in the display, so I'm still having that issue. There's so much different stuff I've tried. It's better if I go ahead and turn off my camera here, which I may do, just turn it off. Oh, let's see, what else have I done? I installed TLP, so I did a DNF install TLP, which is the power savings package, which helps you extend battery life. Now, this laptop, I've been averaging about 4 hours of battery life, so it's not stellar by any stretch of the imagination, and that's in Windows, okay? In Linux, if I'm aggressively using the system, I can get 2.5 to 3 hours. If I'm using it for basic web surfing and I dim the screen sufficiently, it'll last maybe 3 to 3.5 hours, depending. So overall, not too bad. So I'm really happy with how things are behaving. Now, I have noticed, and this was a problem before, it's not anything new. So it's not a Fedora 25 issue, but if you are in Windows and you're in the graphical interface and you log out of Windows and reboot your system and boot directly into Linux, I've noticed that there is a graphics display problem. And actually, in case in point, I could get up to the login prompt and I logged in, and then my screen was simply a black background. I could see the mouse. I could move the mouse up to the corner, but I really could not see anything else. So what I ended up having to do, and I don't think it'll show up on the screen, but I did a Control-Alt F2, which gets me into a console only, and I issued a reboot, and I'm not going to type the whole word because I'm afraid I'll accidentally hit enter and end the screen capture. And with that reboot, I was able to go ahead and get the system working after that. And you see this question mark here? I don't even know what that is. So some of the stuff is just kind of hanging around. So what happens if I click it? Not a whole lot. What's bold going to do? Italics? I'm not even sure what this is. I'm not sure if it's screen corruption or what it is exactly. Notes. That's pretty funny. So something's there. Did you see that? I can move an object. Whoops, now it won't move. I've seen this a couple of times. Yeah, there is something there. That's pretty funny. I think I used notes once, and now for whatever reason, it's not quite displaying correctly on the screen. So there's these tiny little bugs. What other problems have I had? You know, for a beta, it's been remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. I know that, you know, they say don't trust a beta, and they warn you, but they sure do an incredibly good job on their betas. And, you know, can I hit delete? I guess I can. Oh, that's really odd. Can I type? I can. You know what I think it is? I think it's probably the profile that I'm using, the style on my screen in settings. My workspace theme, I'll bet you anything. I'm not going to actually change it, but, well, why not? Let's try it. Desktop theme. What happens if I go back to the default Fedora 25? Apply. Yeah. Ha! That's funny. So apparently my notes, and you can see now do you see what I mean? This bar here isn't quite displaying correctly. Anyway, so what it looks like apparently, I wonder if I could just close this. Clear. I don't really want to clear. I just want it to close. Well, I guess that's something I have to figure out. It's almost like it's a widget. So it made the background of the note by using Arezzo. Let's apply it again and see what happens. And it's gone. How about using something else that's pretty decent looking? You know, honestly, I didn't like any of these other ones very much. How about this one? And you can see one of the problems right there. So there's my note now. How about classified? I mean, it's possible a restart might fix this issue here. I probably could figure out how to get this part to display correctly in my notes. I don't really use the notes anyway, so. However, you know, I do use it in Mac quite a lot. So it would be nice. Where was that configure button? Right there. I wonder if it's, if I did apply to translucent, nothing. Blue, orange, really nothing. Well, anyway, I'm not going to sit here and try and fix this, but you can see there are just a few minor issues, and some of them do not scale well. So here again we have the tiny little title bar not correctly displaying. It's remotely possible a reboot might fix it, but somehow I have a feeling that's not really going to fix it. I may be able to find where in notes that this is set up, the color, and fix it, because I really do like Arezzo. Alright, so I did apply again, and my note went blank, although I can still type in it, so I can technically still use it as a note, right? Very interesting. Oh, let's see. Was there any other problems I've had? Not really. Everything seems to be working quite well, so I'm actually very pleased with it. I think what I'm going to do is log off, so I'm going to have to stop my video recording, but I'll stop the video recording, and I'm going to boot into GNOME. Alright, so we're back and we're logged in. Got my little buddy Pixie here. It's Halloween right now, and she wants to kill all the trick-or-treaters. Say hi, Pix. So she's going to sit here with me so she doesn't bark through the entire discussion. Anyway, so I've booted into my Fedora 25 beta using GNOME, and I've done quite a bit of tweaking at this point to get it looking the way I want. I'm going to go ahead and minimize Vocal Screen. Same terminal program. It looks very different though, doesn't it? And I find it interesting that it uses a dark background instead of the light motif that the theme uses. But I think basically what's happening is the theme that I'm using doesn't account for this particular application, apparently. That's what I'm thinking. What changes have I made here? Well, not too awful much. For one thing, if I go into display settings, I'm running it in 1920 by 1080. So what that basically means, I think you saw it with Vocal Screen. Let me bring that back up, if I can remember which one's which. So you can see that I can actually see all of the different settings. And even though the icons don't show up here, I'm able to read each of the tabs, and I basically know what the settings are doing. Okay, so that's working pretty good. And if I bring up GIMP, and forgive me, I'm typing one-handed. Incidentally, I wanted to say that in my personal opinion, GNOME is so very intuitive. I really love it. You know, just to bring up an application quickly is very simple and easy. If I hit escape and escape again and one last time, I'm going to close built-in display, and I hit the Windows key. For example, I can start doing a search. Got to learn how to spell. My dog wants me to pet her. And just start typing. I don't even have to leave the keyboard, and then I can launch GIMP, for example. And now I've got my, okay, buddy. I'm trying to do some work here. She usually responds quite well to trying to do some work. So I think I have an issue with displaying the tools, all the tools, but you can see now that everything's actually much larger and I can actually read everything, which I'm grateful for. And it looks really sharp. And I want to say, I know there's many out there who'll say I told you so. On my MacBook Pro, even with the Retina display running, I think it's 2560 by 1600 or something like that, this display on this Lenovo running at 1920 by 1080 is by far far sharper than the MacBook. And the MacBook's beautiful. I'm not going to say it's not, but Lenovo did quite a service here, making sure that they actually supplied us with a high quality display. It definitely is nice, this IPS display. So you may have noticed that you know, I've done some tweaking with the icons and some other things, and I want to show you what I did. The first thing you want to do, of course, is enable RPM Fusion, and it's easy to do if you go to any browser and you do a Google search and you look up RPM Fusion. No matter what distro you're on, if you're running GNOME or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can go to RPM Fusion and do configuration, and they will have instructions for whichever you happen to be on, whichever Fedora or Red Hat that you happen to be on. Of course, this is RPM based, so it would only be for RPM systems that use RPMs. Once you do that, then, because I don't think you can install this package without it, do a DNF install xdgurl. And this particular program, and if I do it for me, it says it's already installed. But what's really cool about this program, if I go to gnome-look.org And I just happened to be looking at GDK3 themes. There's a ton of GDK2, and I think they are supported under Fedora 25, so I could use those, and there's many more. In this case, I just went with GDK3, but I want to give you an example. I don't think I have this one installed. So if I click it, and it all depends on the person who's managing the theme. If I scroll down and click Files, and I'm going to have to make this full screen. Okay, doesn't look like they do. They should have an install type. You click the button here and you can use XDG URL. Otherwise, if it's like this, you have to go to an external link and you have to extract the compressed file and you have to put it in a special directory for your themes, which I have a video on how to do that, so I will link the video to this description, so be sure to look in the description if you have a question. But most of these, let's look at Mediterranean Night, use XDG URL support. So I'm going to go to Files. Well, I say most of them, and look, I'm getting none of them. Oh, let's try this one. If it doesn't, you got to do it the old-fashioned way. It's not the end of the world. There we go. So if you see the install button, what it'll do is automatically install the theme for you, and you don't have to do anything except give permission. So if I click Install, we're going to use XDG URL, and I'll do Open Link. And it'll say, are you sure you want to install ArcRed theme? And I say yes. And I guess it doesn't even ask because it is relevant to the user. So I was thinking it was going to ask for root permissions, but it doesn't need it because it's user-based. So hopefully that isn't something that we're going to see an exploit for in the future. Now, of course, I want to be able to configure that. So I use the tool GNOME Tweak. Okay. Launch that. And now I can adjust the themes. I've got ArcRed. And we'll just turn it on, see how it looks. I want you to keep in mind, are you noticing what's going on here? Do you see now how everything isn't quite right? It's giving me a preview. You have to be careful because not every theme is going to work correctly. Now the dark one looks fine. Looks quite nice actually, but I'm still not seeing here in the text area. It's not quite right. Let's go to add weighted, which is the default. Give you an example. See the drop downs now. So if I go back to ArcRed and I click here, I still have the drop down, but the eye candy, all the stuff that I need to be able to make sense of this is missing. And one of the ones that did work well was OS X Arc White. So not all of these themes are going to be Fedora 25 compatible, so you're going to have to be careful and make sure that you are first running the right version of GDK, and then of course you choose a theme that's actually going to work with it. And I don't know if this one did or not. Let's find out. Let's try Mint Unity. No, it didn't. Did any of these other ones work that I got? I don't think they did. Add weighted does, because that's the default. High contrast I haven't tried. Flat remix, what about that one? Oh, that's icons. My mistake. And with the icons, now I can't remember which one I went with before. Might have been flat remix. Let me go back to OS X White. Yeah, I think it was because it hasn't changed any, but I got a couple of different ones. This one's okay. Now you notice if there is not an icon for an app, it goes with the default. It's better than nothing, right? Flat remix. Yeah, I like that one. High color. It's okay. Obsidian. no changes. Apparent oxygen, just a few changes. So some have more. What's breeze snow look like? Not really that big of a change. Some of them have more icons than others, and this one was really popular, so I grabbed it. And cursor selection, I haven't made much change for cursors. That's Obsidian. Hackneyed, I remember installing that one. Breeze Snow and default. Right now I'm just using the default. So that's how I got this, what I consider very nice looking appearance. I know it's very Mac-like. I don't like it because it's Mac-like. I like it because it's very clean. And I love how it sets up all the different elements in a dialog box. One of my favorites is Nautilus. Nice and clean, organized, orderly. I can make shortcuts here. I can look at other locations. I like the way everything's organized. Just absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to shrink down the browser a bit here. Whoops. Ha! That doesn't look great, does it? Look, I can make myself look thinner. Anyway. Anything else I want to cover? That's about it. And of course I can make changes to my preferences. I want to make the background just a little bit lighter. So I'll click close for my terminal window. Now 1080p works wonderful here, but I do have issues. Of course, wouldn't there be issues? If I want to use Kdenlive from here, so I launched Kdenlive. Look how tiny the text is. It's really disappointing. So basically, any KDE app falls back to the default screen size. So it's a 1-to-1. I can make changes to this, but it's a little bit painstaking. And when I do, if I don't remember to change it back and I go back into KDE Plasma, the settings are really messed up. And what I do to make the changes, if I go into apps and I type in settings and I go into KDE system, and it's possible I can find a workaround in the config file, and go to font. I changed the font DPI. It's kind of strange because you got to make a change, so I'll change it to 240 and apply it, but then I have to close Voco Screen and not Voco Screen, close Kdenlive and reopen Kdenlive, and you can see what happens here. So I go back to the settings and I say, well, I'd like to drop it back to 192, so I'll close it again and reopen it again. It's a little bit better, right? But not a whole lot. So you have to keep tweaking the settings. I think 144 or 120 worked really well. I'll click apply again and launch Kdenlive. A little bit better. So I probably want to go a little bit larger, 144, apply again, and relaunch again. Perfect. Now, the only problem with this is you have to do this every time you log in to GNOME. And things don't quite display perfectly. So it's not as good as it is using it right in KDE. So I find myself going into KDE to do my editing and coming back here to do adjustments on the graphics. Kind of a bummer. I wish there was an equivalent editor that worked in GNOME. And so far I haven't found one. KDE or Kdenlive is very, very good for editing. It seems to work really well. So that is the tweaks I've done in a nutshell. I'm going to click apps because I want to see if there's anything I've installed that I'm forgetting about. And I think there is. there's at least one program that I've installed. I installed VLC, of course. Now, there was a problem, unfortunately, with VirtualBox. And you notice the font's really large now. That's because Oracle's VirtualBox actually follows the font size requirements we get from changing the KDE font scaling settings. So that's why they're really huge. Otherwise, it would have still been really small if I hadn't tweaked those KDE settings. I had to download straight from VirtualBox version 5.19. The one that comes with the installer is actually broken. Let's see if I can actually get it to list out. DNF list VirtualBox. Yeah. So the version that currently comes with Fedora Core 25 has several major bugs. So I'm recommending that if you're going to go with Fedora 25, download the latest version, and they call it a test release that's basically equal to or as stable as the current stable release. So I went ahead and downloaded that, and when that increments up, maybe, I'll go ahead and get back on the distro, RPM Fusion, so I can just go ahead and get it from there. But as it stands right now, basically what would happen is if I tried to change the settings of one of my virtual machines and go into storage, yeah. And I went to, no, it wasn't there. Yeah, right here. So if I go into the settings and then into storage, and I click this icon here, and I click this option to choose another optical disk file, an ISO, it would immediately crash. I could still, however, launch my VMs, so kind of strange. I just really couldn't create or alter any of my current new VMs. So that was a real problem. Just to let you know, and what's really weird is I could create the virtual machine, but I could not assign it an ISO. So, of course, the first time it boots up, that's what it's going to want to do. So you are going to have to download and install virtual machine software, VirtualBox, manually. Not difficult. It really isn't. It's no more difficult than installing something from Windows. Okay, so that's basically the tweaks I've done. I've installed quite a few apps, and I got a ton of apps that came with, you can see I now have 4 full screens of applications that came with KDE. Just a ton of stuff in here that I haven't even had a chance to experiment with half the stuff in here. At some point I will, but there it is, looking very good, behaving really well. I'm very happy with Fedora 25. I think it's going to be completely manageable for the next couple weeks until we get on the full release. They're really close now, and it by far is the most beautiful Linux distribution for Fedora, at least, that I've seen, and they're doing quite well. I am and continue to be disappointed with scaling issues. I really feel like these separate desktop environments need to get real and work together in some way to make a consistent cross desktop environment font scaling and rendering so that things work. I've had this machine now, what's going on, 3 years, so you think at this point this would have been worked out, but it's still not, and that's the only real booger to me. That's the only pet peeve I have. So there you have it. I would like to say thank you for watching, and I really appreciate you subscribing, those of you who have subscribed, and I've seen some shares going out. Hopefully you found the videos useful. Thank you for sharing, and of course if you do like it, click like, and if you don't, well, there's also dislike, and I always appreciate hearing your comments. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.